I remember when I was 5 years old, I lived in a mobile home neighborhood in Woodinville, Washington. At the center of the neighborhood is where I lived. Down the street from my house is where my grandparents lived. This is where I often stayed while my mom was at work since she owned a small nail salon in the neighboring town. My grandparents would often take me to the 7-Eleven to get my favorite drinks and snacks, a cherry Coke and a bag of Funyuns. This was a highlight of my day when I visited my grandparents because they would take me every time I visited after a long day of school. In my neighborhood, I had one other friend, Juan. He was in the same grade as me. Every school day, we would see each other at the bus stop where our parents would patiently wait for us to get picked up. This story takes place in the first week of December, the first snowy days of Seattle. This was the first time I've ever laid my eyes on this fluffy, white, flaky object that fell from the sky. Previously, I lived in Florida, where we faced hot and humid days, so the snow was an entirely new experience for my 5-year-old self. Overnight, the snow began to build up and pack all the way up to our shins. The snow that had actually stuck to the ground was protected by a thin and brittle shell of ice that would crack and crunch with each step. Since there was too much snow, the school district decided to cancel school, which meant I got to spend the whole day at home. As a 5-year-old, this was one of the best times of my life. My favorite memory from that day was making a snowman for the first time. With inspiration from cartoons and Disney shows, I slowly packed a ball of snow onto the ground to make the foundation. With my freezing hands and the help from my buddy Juan, we rolled the ball around the grass field until eventually we got a dense ball of snow the size of a basketball. We plopped it onto our foundation. Lastly, we made the head using the same process, except this time it was a lot less work since the head was only about the size of a softball. After having the snowman set up, it was time to decorate it with a nose, mouth, and eyes. Juan and I did not waste any time and immediately started scavenging for rocks, buttons, and a carrot. Juan ended up taking the carrot from his house, and I went to my grandparents' house to look for buttons from their sewing kit. Everything was looking good until we realized that the snowman didn't have any arms. So we quickly sprinted to the nearest tree to grab twigs that had fallen off the tree. At last, the snowman was complete and we ended our quest. With a high five, we watched as the snowman stood tall. The sun began to set and it was time to return home for dinner. That was the best day of my 5-year-old self.